35 on my journey to completing my first ever 200-mile ultramarathon. Uh, First things first, I was not live last week. I had a really busy Saturday. I was in a hockey tournament, played more hockey games in one day than I have in a very long time. And Sunday, I honestly had just forgotten about this. And by the time that I did remember, it was kind of late. I had another hockey game that night. And, I thought about doing this, going live on Monday or Tuesday. But at the beginning, I told myself, no, I'm going live every Sunday. And I've done this in the past where I kind of negotiate with myself a little bit, where I say, oh, if I'm going to do something every Sunday, if I'm like, oh yeah, I missed it on Sunday, but I'll do it Monday. I've given myself that leeway in the past, and not to say that that's an awful thing to do, but this time around, I was like, you know what? No, I forgot about it, and so I'm just going to miss that day. It's going to be a reminder to me that I missed that week, and that's okay. Obviously, this is something that I want to do for myself, and I need to put some systems in place to help me do that. So it's now scheduled in my calendar every single Sunday, so that I know that it's there. I see it in my calendar, and I'm going to show up for myself and for you every week. So, with that being said, quick recap of not this past week that just happened, but the week before that. Miles went pretty well. And then last Saturday, instead of doing a really long run, and this is like Saturday on August 10th, instead of doing a really long run, I had I had a hockey tournament and played in. I think we did five games. Now they weren't full length games; these were like 20-minute games. So in total, I was on the ice for like an hour and 40 minutes. So it's not like I was on the ice for 5 hours or anything like that. However, it was. My body was feeling really tired from August 4th to the 10th that week. My body was pretty tired. And so getting on the ice on August 10th, the first two games, I was feeling it. My legs were feeling it quite a bit. Just use different muscles when you're playing hockey than you do other things. And obviously you're sprinting rather than going for just straight out endurance. So yeah, but the hockey tournament was a lot of fun. There were 4 teams in it. We lost every single game in the round robin, but every team made it to the semifinals, which means that we had a chance. And every game in the round robin was like a 1-goal game, and then we got to the semifinals, and we beat the top-ranked team 6-0, and then in the finals we won 3-0. So we really turned it on. We won the championship with a losing record of 2-3, so I was really proud of that, and it was a lot of fun. This past week, from August 11th to the 17th, that is the week that I'll be reviewing pretty quickly right now, and then I'll move into the week that I have coming up. So this week was a little bit different than most of my training weeks so far, because I had a trail race yesterday. It was called Ridge to Blazing Ridge. So this is the t-shirt that we got. You can see it here, Ridge to Blazing Ridge. It was a 21-mile trail race at Oak Mountain State Park. It's part of the Southeastern Trail Run series, and it was really hot. So because I had that 21-mile race yesterday, leading up to that event, I did not necessarily go as hard as I have on other weeks. So what I mean by that was I only did one gym session, and didn't even really go that hard in the gym. Focused more on stretching and recovery and resting. My body was also feeling really tired. I did really need some rest. So on Thursday and Friday of this past week, when I went to bed Wednesday night, Thursday night, I shut off my alarms. I was like, I don't really care what time I wake up. Sleeping in for me tends to be like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So I would just kind of like let my body wake up whenever it needed to. In the middle of the week, my wife and I, we were going to do a 3-mile run together. And when she exercises, sometimes she almost gets like these internal hives, and her legs get really, really itchy. So about half a mile to a mile in, her legs were just itching like crazy. So we basically just walked those miles, and we ended up turning it into a 5 mile walk. So we did a 5 mile walk. I think that was on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then I didn't do any more running for the rest of the week, just focused on stretching and resting and recovery. And then I had the 21 mile race yesterday. As I said, I was feeling pretty tired for during the week. Like my body just felt a little worn down. I definitely should have done even more stretching. I think I stretched twice during the week, and I definitely needed more than that. And I knew that. I was particularly feeling it in my calves and my feet, and I did not give them enough attention during the week to try and recover. Even though I had that thought where I said, man, I should really do this. I should address this now, so that on Saturday during the event, I'm actually, able to perform at my best. And a little foreshadowing here, yesterday's event did not go all that well for me. I mean, I did finish the event, and honestly, that was an accomplishment in and of itself, especially because of how I was feeling yesterday, mostly like mentally and physically. So don't neglect that little voice in your head. We every day we have this little voice. We should do this or we shouldn't do that, and oftentimes, the more and more we don't listen to that voice, the worse off we are. And then, of course, we don't necessarily trust ourselves because we keep telling ourselves that we should do something, but then we don't. So that little voice in your head and in my head is telling me these things for a very specific reason. So I'm going to pay more attention to those things to ensure that I'm building the most amount of trust in myself and doing the things that are best for myself. So yesterday, the race started at 7 a.m. and it was about 80 degrees at 7 a.m., which is, I think, about 27 degrees Celsius. And so it was pretty hot already at 7 a.m. However, where we're running at Oak Mountain State Park in Pelham, Alabama, it's a trail. It's a state park. It's a trail race. So there's a lot of coverage from trees, and so it wasn't like the sun was directly on us. It was pretty, like I said, it was pretty warm when we started, but nothing crazy. So it was two laps that were about 10.7 miles. So it ended up being almost 21 and a half miles total. And the first half mile to a mile is relatively flat. Then there are some rolling hills, so a couple little steep climbs, and then descents, little climb, little descent. And then once you get to, I would say, mile 2, there's a 1.1 mile climb. The elevation is 800 feet in 1.1 miles, so it's a lot of climbing. And for whatever reason, like, I was going into this race and telling myself, like, oh, I want to post like a really good time, which I actually haven't done I haven't done that in a while. And so a month ago, I ran an 18-mile event at this same park. It was a different course, but it was the same park. And my time was 5 hours and 2 minutes or 5 hours and 3 minutes or something like that. For whatever reason, I had it in my brain and I was like, oh, yeah, 21 miles. So it's 3 miles longer. I want to do it faster than I did that 18-mile event. For whatever reason, that's what I had in my head. I think that was my ego talking and just me being like naively optimistic. Maybe it was trying to really override the feelings that I was having all week that I wasn't necessarily ready for this 21-mile event. I think that's kind of what it was. And so started the run, and within the first half mile was fine. I was trying to run faster than I normally do because of that, because of the desire to run a specific time. And like I said, it just went out too fast. And during one of the climbs, even one of those short climbs, I tried to run up the hill, And like I was moving pretty good. And I mean, at the start, there's a couple hundred people that are in this event, 200 to 300 people. So I was near the back, because right as the race started, I was like, oh, great, I need to use the bathroom. So we start running. Thankfully, there's a bathroom like literally 500 feet into the race. So I stopped there, um, took the quickest number 2 of my life, and then just got back into the track. And I was like, oh, I need to make up time. Like I already had that mentality. And so started running faster than I should have been. There was congestion. There's a lot of people trying to go down this like single track trail. And so I was already getting frustrated that, it wasn't moving fast enough and I was stuck behind all these people and whatnot. So when it came to a little bit of a climb, I said, oh, I can pass a bunch of people. So I started running up the hill. And by the time I got up the hill, my heart rate's at like 175, 180 beats per minute. Like I'm already feeling it. And again, this is at like 7:10 in the morning, 7:15, like we're 10 to 15 minutes into the race. So my body obviously did not like that very much. I also underestimated the climb, the big climb, the one that was 1.1 miles long. So that climb kind of kicked me in the butt a little bit, and yeah, I was just really struggling. And within those first 3 miles, my brain was just totally negative. Like my self-talk was 90% negative, telling me that there's no way that you're gonna make it 10 miles. Like you're not even gonna complete one loop, let alone 2 loops. Like you're out of your mind. Your feet hurt, your legs hurt, your heart rate's really high, you're tired, you should just give up, quit now. And so I had to fight that very early on, which is something that doesn't usually happen. I'm usually very, very positive, very mellow going into these types of events. And I'm able to keep myself in that mindset for the majority of most races. This race, I was not able to do that. And so I was fighting myself from the very beginning. I also misread the course instructions. So I thought that there was an aid station just before mile 5. And this was a full aid station with food and water and electrolytes and people like helping out and volunteers helping you out. And then there was supposed to be another aid station somewhere between mile 7 and 8 that was simply just an unmanned water station. But I misread the instructions and I thought that I saw something that said the unmanned station is going to be sponsored by this running group and there are going to be people there. So I was like pretty confused. I was like, okay, there's an aid station at mile 5 with food and water. And then there's one at mile 8 that's unmanned that also has people. So I was kind of confused. It turns out that there was one aid station at mile 4 with people that were providing food and water and electrolytes, and then that unmanned aid station at mile 8, and with just water jugs, and that's it. So the first lap, my body, like I said, my body's not feeling good. My mind's completely negative right away. I get up to the first aid station. My watch says mile 4, and they're usually very specific about where the aid stations are. And in the course instructions, I swear that I saw somewhere it said that this aid station was at mile 4.83, and I'm reaching it at mile 4. So I thought to myself, oh, and it wasn't in the spot where I was expecting it to be, like in the park. I thought it was going to be like in a parking lot, but it was not. And so I get to this aid station. I was like, oh, maybe this is the second aid station, and we're just randomly crossing it. I was very confused. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to fill this up with water, like refill my water bottles, and in about a mile, I'm going to get to the aid station with food and all that sort of stuff. I really didn't even look. There was definitely food in front of me at that aid station. And I definitely could have asked if this was the 5-mile aid station, but I didn't ask. I just refilled my water bottles and went on my way. And I'm like, oh yeah, in a mile, I'm going to be at this parking lot, and there's going to be another aid station. So I'll grab more food there, and then I'll be on my way. I did have snacks with me, so it wasn't like I didn't have any nutrition or any calories, but it was just this thought process of looking forward to some goodies in about a mile. So I'm running down the trail and I'm like, okay, yeah, we should be heading back up to that parking lot anytime now. And I'm heading towards the parking lot and then I make a left, like away from the parking lot. I'm like, okay, are we going down and then back up? I'm kind of confused. And long story short, we never went to that parking lot. So again, I must have misread the instructions about the course. I don't know exactly what instructions I was reading, but yeah, misread them completely. So my expectations were just like out the window. I'm fighting myself to just let go of that and just move on with the race one step at a time. Get to the second aid station at mile 8. Again, it's just water jugs, so filled the water jugs, and it's about 2.5 miles to the start finish line. So, like I said, I'm struggling. My feet were definitely feeling actually better at mile 8 or mile 9, wherever I was. I think I was at mile 8.5 or 9. My feet were definitely feeling better than they were at the beginning of the race, which was nice. The race essentially at the start, it was flat, and then there was that 1 mile climb, and then it was flat with a descent and a mini climb, and a descent and a mini climb, and then a big descent at the end. So most of the race after that unmanned aid station was downhill. Not like straight downhill. It was very technical too, very rocky for a lot of it, but I didn't have to do any like major climbing after that, which was nice. So finally get back to the start finish line in about just after the 3 hour mark. So I was at 3 hours and 7 minutes. Okay. And remember, my original goal was to do 2 laps in under 5 hours. And I mean, like I said, very quickly starting the race, I knew that 5 hour goal was out the window. Absolutely knew it. But I crossed the start finish line at 3:07 or 3 hours. Sorry, it was right at 3 hours. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to make this a quick stop. Just going to grab some goodies and fill up water bottles, get some more electrolytes, and then be on my way. So my wife was there, which was great. Even though the last 2 miles was mostly a descent, my brain, I was still fighting myself. My brain was still saying like, oh no, like you can't complete another loop. Like you're not in the shape for this. Like you can't do it. Your body hurts too much. You're too tired. It's going to get hotter than this. So just give up. Don't keep going. And then I'd have parts of, positivity saying like, no, I absolutely can do this. And parts of me where I was telling myself, okay, like this is exactly what you want from your training, Adam. Like you want to push yourself to the point where your brain is telling you to just walk away, to give up and walk away, and you need to be able to push through that. Because if I'm going to do a 100-mile ultramarathon and then eventually a 200-mile marathon, ultramarathon, I'm just assuming that there are going to be multiple times in those races where I feel like I can't keep going or where I'm not feeling at my best. And I need to just completely override that and take one step at a time and just keep going. So I was looking at this race as like a micro moment in my training and telling myself, well, if I just let my brain win now, then you're setting that precedent for yourself moving forward. And in the 200-mile race, you're not going to be mentally ready to do it because you had the opportunity right now to fight through it and you chose not to. The other side of me was saying, Adam, your feet and your legs hurt. They're sore. You've been tired all week. Maybe it's a good idea to just stop after one lap and to get some extra rest in and then, reassess after that. So I was like going back and forth with myself during the final 2 miles of the first lap. And I kept telling myself, all right, just put everything on pause, just one step at a time, keep going, make the decision once you get to the start finish line. Make the decision once you get to the start finish line. And then the little voice in my head would pop up and it would say, no, the decision's made. You're doing the second lap. You signed up for this. You're doing the second lap. And then the negative voice would come in. And so I tried to push them to the side and said, okay, once I get to the start finish line, I'm going to decide. So I get down there. My wife Shelby was there. She, of course, somebody gave her a camera, so she's taking pictures of all the runners as they're crossing the start finish line. And once I got to the start finish line, the decision was very easy. I was like, I'm filling up my water bottles, one with water, one with electrolytes. I'm grabbing some snacks, and then I'm going back out there. The decision was super easy once I got back to the start finish line, because in the last quarter mile, once you could see the start finish line, there's this big inflatable thing that says start finish, this big inflatable like semicircle that you just run through. And once I saw that and heard people kind of cheering, I was like, oh, I love this feeling. I absolutely love the feeling of accomplishing what you set out to accomplish. Like just hearing, not only hearing the people cheer as like external validation, but knowing that you pushed through, knowing that you endured to get to the quote unquote finish line that you aimed to get at the start of the day. So I was like, all right, I'm doing the second lap for sure. Like, doesn't matter if it takes me longer, like I'm doing it. So got to the start finish line, saw Shelby, filled my water bottles up, grabbed some food. I was actually out of there pretty quickly. I was only there for maybe 5 to 7 minutes tops. And yeah, started the second lap. So at about 3 hours and 10 minutes, I started my second lap. And now I knew a little bit more of what to expect going into lap number 2. So definitely did not go out fast. And once I got to any little bit of incline, like the first steep incline, I grabbed my trekking poles and I said to myself, okay, my body's not at 100%, and that's okay. I'm going to do the best that I can do right now. And these poles, I have these to help me during the 100-mile and 200-mile events. I'm going to be using these because they do help. So I need to get used to using them anyway. So grabbed them out of my little bag and started using those. They were definitely a big help. During that first 3 miles, climbing up the hills, I definitely saw a couple people that were walking back to the start finish line because they like their heads hurt or their stomachs hurt. They couldn't hold any food down and they needed to call it a day. So I was like, cool. Like I've got 9 miles left, and I'm seeing people walk back. I'm like, it's all good. Like I can keep pushing through this, no problem. Like one step at a time, I can do it. So kept moving forward, and once I saw the second person go by me, I said to myself, like, oh, like, that little voice came back and told me, Adam, it's going to get even hotter. You're not feeling 100%. Like you should just stop right now. And I'm like 2 miles into the second lap. And what I told myself was, Adam, just make it to the first aid station, right? Like, first of all, once you get past this really steep climb, you don't have another really steep climb. This is the only one in the second loop. So get over this first steep climb. Then you got about a mile to that first aid station. So just make it to that spot. And the reason I told myself this was, once I make it to that first aid station, it's about 4 miles into the second loop. And so if I called it quits, I would have to turn around from that spot and walk backwards, which is 4 miles, because that would be the quickest way to the start finish line. Or from that point moving forward, it's about 6.5 miles to the finish line. So I'm like, what's another 2.5 miles, right? I'd have to walk 4 miles back if I stop the race, or I would have to walk 6.5 miles to finish the race. So just get to that point, and you'll be able to grab some food, grab some water, refresh, and then keep going. And so got to that aid station, and people were handing out like freezies, which was fantastic. Had a freezie, put cold water all over my face and all over my back, which felt really good. Filled up my water bottles with really cold water, and then after a 5-minute break, got right back at it. And like I said, I was walking mostly for that last 6.5 miles, trying to jog as much as I could because of some of the technical terrain and because of some of the inclines. Even though they were small, I was walking most of the time. And again, my legs were just really tired. So I was trying to make it through as best I could. Um, the last 3.5 miles of that second loop were definitely the toughest. It was very hot. By this point, it would have been like 12 or 12:30 p.m. So it was 93 or 94 degrees in the shade. And there were definitely spots of this race where the sun was just beating down on you or on me because the tree, there were, gaps in the trees. Most of the time was covered, which is a huge blessing. So grateful for that. But there were times where the sun was just beating down on me, and even without the direct sunlight, obviously it was pretty hot. So the heat and humidity were definitely taking a toll. I was drinking a lot of water. Um, I had this yellow cooling towel around me. Now it doesn't stay like super cold, but when you keep a certain amount of moisture in it, the air just keeps it pretty cool, especially compared to like your skin because of the direct sunlight. So that saved me. Like every couple minutes, I would just take the end of that towel and just wipe my face down, and it kept me cool, which was nice. But that last 3.5 miles, it was hot, it was humid, my legs were tired, my feet were very sore, my body was just pretty drained. At one point, I was literally just walking. I wasn't running. I was just walking, and it was pretty flat. And I'm like, oh man, I'm feeling really tired. I look at my watch, and my heart rate's at like 156, 160, and I'm just walking. Like I'm not, I'm not doing anything. I'm just walking, and my body is working this hard to try and keep going. Right? Normally, when I'm running at 5 miles an hour, my heart rate is lower than 150. So walking at 3 miles an hour and my heart rate being at 155 or 160, I was just could just see how hard my body was working at that moment. Um, I can't tell you how happy I was to see that set of water jugs when there was about 2.5 miles left. I was so relieved because I was just able to just dump some water on my face, like re-wet my towel, fill up my water bottles, just chug some water, and get back out there. But that last 2.5 miles was really tough. Again, most of it downhill with a couple little tiny climbs, but my goodness, it took every bit of effort for me to get across that finish line. When I finally did, of course, felt amazing. Immediately, just like uh, again, my wife was at the finish line taking pictures. She put the medal around my neck, and I was like, "Yay, got a picture!" As soon as that was done, I was like, "Can you take the medal off of me? I need to like strip down. Like I need to get my backpack off of me. I want to take my shirt off. I literally just want to like hose myself down. Like I'm so tired. I want to lay on this metal bench that otherwise would not be comfortable, but right now absolutely is. So yesterday overall was definitely on the struggle bus. Um, During the Olympics, I heard this athlete say that she follows the rule of thirds, which she basically just says when you're training to do something that you've never done before or to accomplish something you've never done before, uh, generally speaking, she follows this rule of thirds that says a third of the time during your training, you're going to feel amazing. A third of the time, you're going to feel okay. And a third of the time, you're going to feel pretty crappy. She's like, if you feel amazing every single time you're training, then you might not be pushing yourself hard enough to try and get better and better every single day. And I don't know how true all of that is, but I definitely do know that there are days where even if you're working out, like going to the gym three times a week or 5 days a week or whatever it is, even if you're not training for anything crazy, right? On different days, you're not gonna, your 100% that you can give is gonna be different, right? So every day is gonna look a little bit different. Some days you're gonna feel great. Some days you're gonna be meh. Some days you're gonna feel like crap. I think that's true for everything. And so yesterday during that trail race, it was just one of those days where I was not at 100%. And you know what? That's okay. I pushed through it. I was struggling a lot, but facing those mental battles is going to make me stronger. It already has, because I endured, because I convinced myself to keep going and keep pushing through. And I mean, today my body isn't, feeling that bad. Yesterday, when I got home, did some light stretching, and really relaxed. I didn't do a lot yesterday. Today, same thing. Haven't really done too much. Gotten moving around a little bit. Going to do some stretching here soon. I do have a hockey game in about 3 hours from now, so really late game today, which actually worked out well because I had the whole day to recover from this 21-mile race. But in the hockey game, I honestly, let's see how it goes. I don't know if I'm really going to be able to push all that much. We may only have 5 or 6 players on the ice today because it's a super late game. So we play 5-on-5, which means that if there's only 6 guys, it's going to be pretty tough out there. So we'll see how it goes. Other than that, this week, I do have 2 gym sessions, although they are going to be pretty light. This week is going to be more of a recovery week for me. So hockey tonight, stretching and breath work tomorrow, a light gym day on Tuesday. I'm going to do 3 to 5 miles of like a recovery run on Wednesday. Some more recovery work on Thursday, a light gym session Friday, and then 10 light miles on Saturday. So that's what the week looks like. I know that, saying that running 15 miles in 1 week might sound like a lot to many of you. And trust me, I get it. I used to be in that spot where 15 miles sounded like a lot. And I mean this in all sincerity. These are going to be like easy runs, what all I mean by that is that I'm going to be running at a very slow pace, very low effort for these miles. And the reason for that is because I've worked my body very hard over the last 2 weeks. But the miles that I'm going to be running at a low intensity, number one, they are actually going to help my body recover, right? Running at a low intensity will help help the blood flow, help the recovery, and it also just gives me the time on my feet that I really need when it comes to training for these endurance runs. So overall, this past week, not the best week that I've had in terms of training, but I did push through the very difficult moments yesterday and finished that race. I'm going to be making sure, and I've said this over and over again, make sure that I spend more time doing recovery work. I definitely need to increase the amount of time that I am foam rolling. This past week, I did 0 minutes of that. I did do recovery yoga. I did use my Theragun. I did do some stretching. However, the foam rolling specifically is something that helps me out. So this is me saying it out loud, so that I make sure that I do it. And I do have a tracker here where I track my daily habits, and I actually am going to add foam rolling to that list so I can specifically track that. My goal, so I have 5 daily habits that I'm tracking right now. My goal is to do every single habit at least 6 days out of the week. If I hit the daily habit 6 days out of 7 or 7 out of 7, I'll write it down as like a green number. So I'll write 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 7 in green. If it's 5 days a week or fewer, then I write it in red. So I'll write 5 or 4 or 3 in red to signify, or to signal to myself, or to tell myself that, like, hey, you didn't quite reach the goal that you set out. At the end of every week, so I start this new tracker on Sundays. It's on a whiteboard here. Started on Sundays, track it all the way to Saturday. At the end of Saturday, I snap a picture of it, and then I save it in a album on my phone, so that at any point in time I could quickly just open my phone and go check to see how I've progressed over time, whether or not I've done the things that I said that I'm going to do. And at the end of this thing, it'll basically, I'll be able to look back on it and say, okay, you either put in the work or you didn't, right? And it'll really be, I think, a really telling sign of whether or not I progress the way I anticipate that I will progress over the next 6 to 7 months. So I'm going to add foam rolling to that list. Now you know what's on the schedule for this week, and I'm going to wrap things up here because I got to get a meal in, and then got to get some stretching in before I head off to hockey for the day. So that's a wrap on week 4. I'm starting week 5 today. I'll be back here next Sunday to document how week 5 went and to talk about the plans for week 6. All right, everybody, take care for now. Remember, comfort via discomfort. You can endure. All right, I'll see you next week.